Okay, I think we are ready to get started. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar introducing the Qualtrax solution for NERC compliance. My name is Leah Morse, and I'm the marketing team lead here at Qualtrax. Today's session will be recorded, and we will make that recording available to all of our registrants after the webinar. So let me get control of my presentation here. Here we go. So I'm very excited to introduce our presenters today. I am joined today by Amy Ankrum and Terry Schroeder, both from Qualtrax. Amy Ankrum is our president and CEO. She's most happy when challenging the status quo and helping to better our world in the process. Amy has led Qualtrax since 2011 with a focus on creating an organization that embraces a results-oriented approach to culture to drive continuous improvement and boasts a 95% plus customer retention rate. Amy is a graduate of Virginia Tech and proud to be growing the Qualtrax business in Blacksburg, Virginia, home of Virginia Tech. Terry Schroeder is our controls strategist, and he's been working with controls since the beginning of his career. Terry is an award-winning controls engineer, winner of the International George Westinghouse Signature of Excellence Award, and co-author of 2 books in the NERC compliance space, Protecting Critical Infrastructure and the CIPLO Compliance Program Guide. So we have some great content to get to today, and I don't want to delay any longer, but I do want to thank everyone once again for joining us today. Amy is going to get us started out the gate, so I will hand things off to her. Amy?
Great. Well, thank you, Leah, and thanks to all of you for joining us. I know Terry and I are both excited to share with you a little bit more about Qualtrax today, and I think that's a great place to start. I know if I'm in your shoes, I want to know more about the organization behind the software that might be helping me with compliance. And our purpose is really a great place to start. We are focused on simplifying compliance for organizations, and we really do hone in on those that make a critical impact on society. And as we've looked at the energy market and power generation and utilities, we see a very strong fit with our purpose. We've been helping organizations for over 24 years with quality and compliance programs. And unfortunately, during that time, we have seen a lot of vaporware in the markets we serve. And we're proud that we've been able to create a strong user community that is confident in us as our solution. And we maintain over a 95% retention rate. When we first started the organization, it was really out of a need for a company to become ISO compliant. And ever since we've been established, we've been using our own product to help manage our quality system. So today, Qualtrax is ISO 9001:2015 certified. And we always like to point that out. I think it's nice to hear that we are using our own software to help improve quality. We are located in Blacksburg, Virginia, close to the Virginia Tech campus, which creates a great talent pool for us as we continue to grow. And I would be remiss not to mention, and you may see this big check in the picture on your screen. We are very much growing and investing in the organization. We've taken on just over $3 million of investment to help us reach more companies and drive new product innovation. On the next slide here, we're going to talk a little bit about our core values. So in order for us to continue to help serve this big purpose that we have, it's important that we have a strong team behind us. And the core values that you see here on the screen, they're very important to us. These really serve as guideposts for us in decision making, and not just here at work, but in our personal lives as well. And I believe that if we continue to get the opportunity to talk with you in the future, you'll very much see these core values in our team members. All right, well, that was a quick snippet about who we are as an organization. To really get to the heart of today, I'm excited to be able to begin to talk about the NERC solution that we've created. This solution is designed to simplify the process of managing the collection and retention of all the evidence needed to demonstrate compliance. And as we've really looked across the different industries we've served through the years, we do see a lot of similarity in the backbone of what's required in a compliance system. But each market has its own unique problems, and NERC is no different. So we see there's complexity there, and we have created a solution tailored to that need. As an ISO 9001 company, we really approach continuous improvement through this idea of simplification. And I think what you'll learn today is that for the SIP standards, we have created a full internal compliance control package. And we are also in development on our operations and planning and controls that will be released soon. So if I go on to the next slide here, we'll see to kind of take a look deeper at NERC SIP and why simplify. So why is it that you might need technology to help you here? I think on the surface, we see, well, it's really just, it's one compliance standard with 11 standards associated with that. Okay, maybe that's not so tough. Well, it is just the tip of the iceberg. As we drill down, we'll see that inside those 11 standards, there's over 30 requirements that evidence must be collected and managed against. And within that, there's 200 sub-requirements, which must also be covered by evidence. And then, like any iceberg, there's more hiding beneath the surface. It takes over 150 different compliance tasks to meet those requirements and hundreds of different types of evidence. All that resulting in thousands of different evidence documents that may need to be collected. Not to mention all the scheduling, oversight that could go into this process. As you can see, that's a lot of complexity. And that's where Qualtrax really shines, is the ability to take these difficult problems and use technology to make them more simple. In our next slide, just to talk a little bit more about the cost of this complexity. Because I know for me, before you would go off and justify a solution around this, maybe you can make it work without the technology. I think it's important to kind of take a step back and look at what that may cost. In this graph, we really have represented what it would look like in a compliance program where there's very little organization, structure, and resource behind it. So as you're seeing, there's a lot of time going into these unallocated tasks, things that need to be done that, let's face it, are in addition to your daily job. I know for most of you, NERC SIP compliance is just one of many hats that you're wearing. And we've certainly seen through Harvard Business Review studies and other research, when complexity like this exists, a lot of inefficiency can occur, up to 50 to 90%. So when we start to look at how that might translate and the benefits of simplifying this complexity, let the slide come up here, you will see this starts to look much different when we start to manage these things through technology. So in this example, we're showing where, imagine when scheduling and those compliance challenges, avoiding findings, audit success, those things become managed and allows you to actually put your time back into where you want and need to be focused. So we really do believe that with Qualtrax, you could generate time savings in excess of 50% using our technology. So hopefully, as you've listened to this, some of that resonates with what you're seeing as you're looking at tackling NERC. And with that, I think I will pass it over to Terry Schroeder so he can talk to you a little bit more about our specific solution for NERC compliance.
Thank you, Amy. So when we looked at the compliance problem and we looked at the gap between the NERC standards and operations, what we recognized very, very quickly was that whether it's cybersecurity or other operational activities, that's where all of our evidence is actually being produced. Meanwhile, the standards on the other side of the gap are basically mandating that those standards, what actually has to be done. And of course, the gap is, how do you bring the two together so that they're in sync? And so what we recognized is the primary place where the most amount of white space and wasted space is really that organizational layer that actually applies universally to utilities. And when I say that, it's really interesting because if we think about the standards, once they break down to define the evidence that we need to collect and the specific requirements and sub-requirements that that evidence must demonstrate compliance for, that's really the point that is common for everyone. How I produce that evidence is going to be very, very different inside of each utility. So you have a lot of variation in the actual evidence generation. So we started understanding that there's a layer over top of that that we can dramatically simplify. So the first thing that we did is we decided to just simplify compliance. And for SIP, we built out 39 internal controls that will orchestrate compliance on a recurring schedule as needed or on demand, as we would use with configuration change management and for personnel changes to access rights. These controls are ready to go out of the box. They cover every standard requirement and sub-requirement in SIP so that it is a comprehensive, ready-to-go solution out of the box that you don't have to modify. And so that gives us all the ability to collect all of this compliance. But we realized also there were several other problems we had to simplify because NERC is kind of a beast. So the second thing that we did is we simplified evidence management, because one of the things that we've noted is that it's very easy. In fact, it tends to be the default to want to organize our evidence by the standards requirements and sub-requirements. The problem with that is that we're collecting evidence from people who are not going to memorize that information and realize that it does change relatively frequently as well. But we're actually still, in most cases, still collecting the same evidence from the same people. So let's use our folders to manage our evidence. Let's use a human readable name that definitely tells us exactly what we're going to find in that folder, which is exactly what we've done. We've built out all those folders, and then we've mapped the standards as metadata to the folders so that anytime a document goes into a folder, it automatically inherits the standards metadata and it's cataloged correctly for compliance reporting. So dramatic simplification in how we actually manage evidence, going to reduce the amount of changes in the system. We're going to oftentimes, when standards change, just update the metadata and not change anything else. And it's going to make it a lot easier for people who are collecting the evidence to understand what they're expected to collect. It's going to make it a lot easier for the people reviewing evidence to understand what they're looking at and be able to quickly determine whether or not what they expect to see is actually there. So that was the second piece, and that gives us a solid platform, but we still felt there was one other critical piece left. And so the third piece is simplify the user experience. And this is so critical because the vast majority of people who are going to be interacting with a compliance management system for NERC compliance are going to have other responsibilities, and compliance is really just an extra tag-on thing. So we need to give those people the simplest way possible for them to do what they need to do and without having to think about much and without having to learn a lot. And so what we've done is we've built a common task design so that all the tasks across the entire system are all going to look the same. We've also used a very simple task structure. So when we prompt for evidence collection, it's simply click on the evidence you're going to upload. There's an add document link right there for you for the specific folder. Opens up a nice little dialog. Identify the document want, click done. It's loaded into the folder. You don't have to worry about the metadata. It's all taken care of. Everything was just 2 clicks. Then we go ahead and we bake in the compliance checks that relate to the requirements and sub-requirements that apply to the evidence, so that we're also asking that task user, whether when they're reviewing or verifying, to validate that the evidence that's been collected actually satisfies the requirements. So we're looking for validation and attestation. We're also making certain people are aware of, I'm asking you for this evidence, and here's the things it needs to meet. That's going to help everyone in the organization understand what is expected of them better and allow them to do a more effective job. So what we end up with is we have an out-of-the-box solution that is going to be able to manage the overall compliance program by assigning different tasks to people, all by itself, because it's built out of the box. And I'd like to kind of show you what that looks like in our next slide, where what it really kind of becomes is a system, the Qualtrax server. It's all pre-configured, ready to go, at least for SIP right now. It's going to be running, and any recurring controls are going to get kicked off. Now, one of the things the default configuration uses, because it can be very valuable to your organization, is it's going to route all of your controls through a SIP compliance coordinator group for gatekeeping and oversight. So this is a group that is going to want to know anytime we're running a control, we're collecting evidence for this, we're collecting evidence for that, we're reviewing our cybersecurity policy, we've got cybersecurity training going on, whatever the case may be, this group is going to see what work is happening. And once they've approved anything to go through, which they also have the ability to stop something, so if a recurring control kicks off and you know as part of that group, this is not a good time for this control to kick off. We have a window, we've got some other things we're doing, we just need to wait. You can actually apply that human judgment. And so once then it is approved, then the Qualtrax control is going to start issuing tasks to the cybersecurity and operations people who have been assigned the compliance roles that are built into the solution. And they're going to be prompted to either collect, review, verify, or potentially resolve a compliance issue. Those are probably the 4 primary roles. There's a few others, but the 4 primary roles are collect, review, approve, and resolve. And so those tasks are going to start getting executed, and the system's smart enough to know that if I need to send it out to a resolver, I will send it out to a resolver. Where there's an issue, the person doesn't know how to deal with it, I need to escalate this up to an expert who can actually handle the situation. All baked in. So if you could imagine that, the next question becomes, just really what does it take to actually deploy this solution? So let's look at my last slide, and I will show you exactly what it takes to deploy the Qualtrax solution. Now, when I say deploy the solution, that means it's ready for you to start running controls. Whether you start all the controls right off the bat, set up your schedules, and just basically have a big kickoff day, or whether you roll them out in a more programmatic manner, it doesn't really matter. The key thing is we want to be ready to deploy those controls at the pace that you desire as quickly as possible. We don't want to spend a lot of time on that front side. So we want to be able to do that in 30 days or less, to be honest. So here's how we're going to do that. We're going to start by setting up the users in groups. You only have 4 things you have to do. So how hard is that? Well, we've got all these compliance roles pre-configured in the solution. We've got an Excel import template that's all set up with all the compliance roles in it. You've got to add in your users, and then you do have to map your users through the compliance roles. And that's going to take a little bit of time. That may take a couple days, might even take as much as a week to kind of map that out. So that's about a week's worth of work. And then we're going to determine our data strategy. There's a couple of things we really care about data-wise from a compliance perspective for NERC SIP. And it's really 2 buckets. It's cyber assets, which includes BES cyber systems, cyber assets themselves, virtual machines, transient cyber assets, and removable media, and also personnel. And the reason why we care so much about that data is we actually have to take specific actions within our compliance program on those objects. We're going to perform a change on 1 or more of those cyber assets, or we're going to grant or revoke access rights on a particular person. So that's built into the solution. The way it is out of the box is you actually have Excel templates for each of those lists, we call them, and we have integration into those Excel templates so we can use data in a column and present that in our UI in our normal drop down where you'd make your normal selections. So that way we can make sure we have documented in our workflow controls the cyber assets and the people that our activities are actually affecting, or I should say documenting. And we also then have the ability to do historical reporting. So I could say I want to see everything that has happened to this person over the last 3 years. Or I say I want to see everything that's happened to this cyber asset over the last 3 years, and we'll be able to do that. So that's baked in. There are other options. Certainly it could go with the existing functionality could read from a database table. That's an extremely simple other option, and there's other things that could be done. But out of the gate, it comes with Excel templates. So you got to decide, do I want to use those? And then if you are going to use them, you have to load your data. We need your cyber assets, your people, and that stuff. So let's assume that that's probably, oh, maybe that's a week. So now we knocked off another week. So now we go to the next thing. We got to set our recurring schedules. Well, this shouldn't take long at all. The schedules are all in the solution, but we obviously haven't given them a start date because we don't know when you're going to start each of your recurring schedules. So you need to go into those pre-configured schedules and set them up. Maybe we'll spend a couple of days in that. We're about 2.5 weeks into our deployment at this point. And, you know, before we really want to roll out those controls, we'd really like to get all of our existing evidence imported into the solution. So the last thing we might want to do is we might want to go ahead and do that, and that's extremely easy to do, whether you're bringing whether you're bringing documentation in or bringing documentation out of Qualtrax. Very easy to do. So we've already got the pre-configured evidence folders. We've already got a master list we provide with the solution that shows you every standard listed to every folder. What you do is you just match your documents up to the right folder, and then you either drag and drop them into the folder, or you use the browse and upload button if you prefer that, and select them one or multiple off of your computer and upload those into your folders. So you'll have to go through that exercise. You know, sometimes we could have a lot of documents. That might take a couple weeks, maybe 2.5. We've still made our rollout controls in 30 days or less. So it really is that easy to roll this solution out, and it is meant to be an out-of-the-box solution that you typically would not want to look at and extensively modify the controls. One of the big values that you can get, and the reason why we didn't go down into the operational level, is there's so much variation between utilities at that level that it's almost impossible to produce a one-size-fits-all solution. But at this level, because everything that's happening in Qualtrax is being driven directly by requirements in the NERC standards, everybody has to do this. If you don't quite do it the way Qualtrax does it right now, you're still doing it. And there's no essential difference in doing it through us than doing it another way, than the fact that you gain that simplification benefit. And I think the other thing that I would point out is that if we kind of think long-term on this, and we really kind of open our minds to what the future is going to look like, an approach like this that can be maintained by your vendor and have updates provided as the model goes, because we are using a common model, we've avoided the slippery slope that we all fall prey to at times, where we say, you know, I'd love to just tweak that to be just like what I want, and turn it into a one-off that's suddenly hard to maintain, and maybe what you made sense then doesn't make sense later, but the platform's kind of, you know, drifting the other way and you're off on your own. So I think that the big home run is that this platform can be used out of the box to do exactly what I said. And I'd even like to make the one other point that this platform can also be extended to do that one-off operational stuff and without actually affecting the framework itself. So in other words, you as a utility could even look at a tool like this and say, you know what, it's doing this later for me, it's doing magical, it's absolutely wonderful, and I'm going to take some of that same capability and I'm going to drill down a layer lower, and I'm going to actually put some controls, some workflows around how I actually go about handling effectively the production of evidence, if you want to call it that. So That's absolutely something can be done, and we've actually built into the framework the correct way to do that. So for any of our customers that care about going to that level, we know exactly what they should do to do that without affecting the long-term viability and low maintenance of the solution out of the box. So I think that gives a decent overview of the solution. I'd like to close with just making sure to say that, you know, you only get so much from a webinar. It's obviously very high level. I haven't gone into the product. You know, if you want to know more, reach out to Hutch Gray. He's the best guy at Qualtrax to reach out to, but you can reach out to us in any way that's comfortable for you through our contract form. However you want. But if you reach out to Hutch, I guarantee he'll get back to you and figure out you know, how we can help you understand the things that you want to know, whether you want to have a demo, whether you want to talk to a specific person at Qualtrax, or you just want to ask some specific questions about your context and whether or not we really help based on, you know, whatever information you can provide for us. It's a discussion that we have to engage in to understand the quality of the fit to the problem at hand and the benefit that's going to come out of it. And as a company, we only look to really solve customer problems and create high value. So we're your partner also in helping you understand whether or not there really are benefits that you care about and can reap rewards from our solutions. And if we find that that's not the case, if the problems that you have that need to be solved are problems we do not solve, we will make certain to be clear about the fact that we don't do that. So again, I strongly encourage you to reach out and learn more. I think in NERC compliance, it's an ongoing educational opportunity every single day, sometimes more than I would like it to be. And greatly appreciate your time and attention today. And as Leah said, when she introduced, we will be reaching back out. We have recorded this session, and so we'll maybe be making sure to touch everyone so they do have access to what we presented here today. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you and learning more about the compliance problems that you face. Thank you.